Happy birthday, Andre. Andre. I don't know. How do you say his name, Toasty? Sarkowski.
I always just say Andre. I think it's like Sarkowski or something. I think it's like,
I don't know,
one of those things. Yeah, I don't know.
We had a fan of some of our shows from Poland write me recently and say, hey, if you need any pronunciation help, I'm Polish. I can help you with Polish names, because we talk about Polish names on the Cyberpunk Lorecast also. But I didn't look this up ahead of time. But happy birthday to the writer of The Witcher. Welcome, everybody, to the Witcher Lorecast. We're back. This is episode 2. You've got me, Robots, or Tom, and Toasty here, as usual. And I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode. We were very excited to get that out to you. And we're still trying to make sure that it's up on all the platforms. Hopefully it will be up everywhere this coming week. We'll have some notifications about like Apple Podcasts and anybody else that's lagging behind with that. And welcome to our live chat. It's Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/robotsradio, where you can watch us live, talk about this. You can watch the videos and see our beautiful, I mean, I'm on par with somebody like Yennefer, I would say, and you're kind of a Triss. Okay,
which ones though? Which ones though? That's the real question.
That's true. I mean, they're all generally attractive, you know, like.
I mean, the video game characters are more attractive than the book characters. I mean,
even in the books, they get to choose how they look. So, like, they purposely choose to be attractive women, right?
That's true. That's true.
So I think it's just like, which flavor of attractive do you like? You know, like, are you more into girls that look like this or like this? Anyway, we are not actually that attractive, but you're welcome to tune into our YouTube channel.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, Toasty is very attractive. I'm just kind of mundane looking. And you can watch us live on the Robots Radio YouTube channel, or of course you can listen to us on whatever podcatcher. But Toasty, we've got some other background lore to go into. Last week we talked about the conjunction of the spheres. Conjunction, yeah. Why? That sounds like a grammar term. I guess it is a grammar term.
I think there's that what is it? Schoolhouse Rock thing or whatever. Conjunction, junction.
Yeah.
What's your function?
Yeah, it didn't occur to me last week that sounds like a grammar thing. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. We have more stuff to talk about. And this week we were talking about the events that happened before we get Witchers, right? These are the events of the world that lead up to the world needing Witchers, the world creating Witchers. How would you frame this?
I would frame it as important stuff that happens before Witchers come around. I mean, we all know. I think we all know why the world needed Witchers. There's not really
monsters
an explaining for that,
yeah.
But we're going to talk a little bit about the the first establishments of the Northern Kingdoms, mm-hmm. and I think a very important event of them making the Brotherhood of Sorcerers. I think that's important too.
Ooh, okay. Well, let's kick this off. So, where do we start?
So we mentioned a little bit last week, but we start with the first landing, or otherwise known as the landing of the Exiles.
Oh, so the Nordlings were exiles. Yes.
From where? I'm not entirely sure on that, to be honest. So that's one of the weird things, I think, is no one's entirely sure where the Nordlings come from. Because like we talked about last week, how the elder races were the first races, right?
Yeah.
And humans weren't here.
Right.
But maybe they actually were. We're not entirely sure where the Nordlings come from. Did they come through the conjunction and then? So
you're saying that there's a few different variations on this. Either we didn't get humans, like on our last episode, we talked about how most likely the humans showed up and the timing was similar to that of the conjunction of the spheres. So the assumption is that the conjunction happened and then humans showed up. So therefore humans came from the conjunction of the spheres. One other possibility would be that that's just happenstance. the conjunction happened, and then the humans who are already just on a different continent or something found their way over to the part of the world where we have recorded history, and therefore they already existed. And I guess the third option would be that there were humans that were here, but then there were also humans that came through from the conjunction, and that this group of humans may be one or the other of those two things, and we don't really know.
Yeah. So that one, we know that I'm still the pronunciation. We'll get that Polish guy's information. We'll learn from.
We'll learn from him. Right.
The Dauk and the Wolsker people came through the conjunction after their.
Okay, so we know destroyed. For sure that those were conjunction humans.
Yes,
but the Nordlings, we don't really know.
The Nordlings, yeah, they show up. They show up sometime after. To be specific, this happens in the 760s when 4 ships, which kind of surprising, 4 ships bearing the men who would give rise to the Northern Kingdoms, and they made landfall in the Pontar Delta, one of those Pontar. It's one of the very important rivers, and the mouth of the Yaruga, another very important river.
Got it. And the names of the ships were the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, and the Black Pearl. So wait, that's not right. Toasty's laughing at me.
I mean, they're not named, so it could actually be correct.
I think that's probably likely. But let's just keep going.
It makes sense. It makes sense. It sounds very witchery, you know. So this happens, and so they start to like set up things. And this is also about the time when humans, or specifically the Nordlings, start learning how to manipulate. There's another name for it. We talked about chaos or magic. They also call it the Force.
The Force. Wait. Is this actually like a Star Wars planet? And we didn't know?
It might be. Who knows? There's a lot of planets.
Okay, but it's interesting though. But like magic is just called the Force. Like that means that it's common enough to be given a title as common as something like the Force. Yep.
So, and they do refer to it as those like 3 things. Some people call it chaos, some call it magic, some call it the Force. A Nordling who comes in on one of these ships, one of the original like passengers, Jan Becker. I'm going to say that that's Jan. I think that's
probably
correct Polish pronunciation. Right. He's the first to start to learn how to manipulate the Force.
Interesting. So they actually have, they know this is the first person to actually do this. That person must have been a genius or really lucky.
I mean, or you could just be really determined, you know?
Yeah. Like it's interesting to even know that the thing like that is there until like maybe they had a natural sense for it.
I think that there was like, we see like physical manifestations of magic. So I think at some point you show up and you like see this really crazy thing and it's like, how's that happening? Something's got to be making that happen.
Right.
So I think just was like, okay, maybe it was just a dude who was like, I want to be the best. And so I'm going to learn how to use that. So,
okay. So what happens after the 760s?
So this is we get into the 760s to the 830s. This is 70 year span. Yeah. My math bad. 70-year span where just a lot of stuff starts to happen. So we get the reigns of Desmond and Sambuc. Maybe not. They begin simultaneously. These are going to be the first kings.
Okay.
Kings.
Okay. So this is like Alfred of England being the first king of England. These guys rise to power.
Yep. And so Desmond is going to be the first king of Temeria. And if you've had any involvement with The Witcher in any way, you've heard of Temeria. That's one of the big northern kingdoms. And so not much is actually known about Desmond other than he's the first king of Temeria. But there's a lot of like, it says that his memory lives on through jokes, proverbs, anecdotes, and adages.
Mm-hmm. So he's like the thing of legend at this point. Like he shows up in a lot of this common talk, but there's not a whole lot of like hard facts about him.
Yeah. So I mean, this is significant amount of time. So we know that the dwarves, based on a lot of the talks in the books themselves, the dwarves seem to be very fond of King Desmond, or the memory of King Desmond. Not entirely sure why, but
maybe he treated them well. Maybe they got along. Yeah, maybe they had like good trade agreements, and the humans kept to themselves and dwarves kept to themselves, or intermingled, freely, and there wasn't any. What we know about The Witcher in the games and in the, I guess the time of Geralt, is that generally the races don't get along very well.
They really don't. Yeah. But maybe at the beginning maybe they did. Probably had to, or immediate war would have ensued. But so, and then also for Sambuc, he was going to be I'd like to think of this area as like the predecessor to Redania. Mm-hmm. So it's not exactly the same area that Redania is, like what we see in The Witcher 3. So he founds a state in the northern kingdoms that stretch along the coast of from the Pontar Delta to the Arc Sea. And his capital was Novigrad.
Okay, and we're familiar with that. If you've played through The Witcher 3, you've been to Novigrad.
It is very big, probably the biggest city.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and it's it's on the north part of the coast.
Yeah. So this is like an unnamed territory, but it basically sounds like he's going to be the first. Like, this is the predecessor to Redania. He does give birth to, or he doesn't give birth, but he is the father of Radovid the First.
Okay, and Radovid is a name that we should be familiar with as well.
Yeah, this is great grandfather of that Radovid, but yes.
Right.
So these are like the establishments of the First Kingdom. We got Temeria, we got the pre Redania. So we start to see more and more of this stuff being established. So we get our first that's clever. Put on a map.
Yeah. So first... for anybody who's watching live or watching the video, and anybody who's listening who can't see it, I put up a map on the screen. You can look up maps online, and I recommend doing it at some point. And you'll notice, like the Pontar River, a lot of events happen in and around that area. Like this area between Redania and Temeria tends to be the location that we get a lot of events in The Witcher. And you can kind of see, as I'm panning around a little bit. This is the area that you get a lot of stuff. This part right here, but it's bigger than that. Like we know more about the world. Sintra's down south of that. And to describe to our listeners, if you're looking at the coastline, it's a western facing coastline, and Redania is toward the northern part of that coast, just before you get to the part where the coast heads west. And then the coastline faces south. And then Temeria is a very almost equally sized kingdom just south of Redania, and the Pontar is the border. That's the river that separates the two of them. Okay, so where were we here? I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I just wanted to get a map up so people can see it.
That's a good thing to add in there. Give that visual element to help with that. So we also get the introduction of a new alphabet. So this is for the humans. Probably, they're starting to kind of establish more of a, development.
Well, a culture.
Developed culture. There you go.
Yeah, it's their own culture. This is one of those things that when you look back in history, you see that there are connections between different cultures and their alphabets as things evolved. Even like among Roman lettering, there's changes in Roman lettering over the years. And you can tell by the kinds of words used and the kinds of alphabet used that culture was an established culture by that point, and that there was a lot of writing happening which is why it had evolved from something that had been previous to that culture. So, so like Koine Greek is a certain, like that is a hard and fast alphabet of the ancient Greeks. And by the time you get to modern Greek, that's now changed. And that means there was a cultural shift between those two periods, just as an example.
So we get that we're getting a new alphabet. And we're also going to get like I said, this is a 70-year span. So obviously not all of these things are happening stacked on each other. They're, as the years pass on through this era. We're going to get the Novigradian Union. Sure. The Novigradian Union is going to be a pact between like magic users. So we got mages, priests, and druids, as well as the rulers of these like newer formed kingdoms. And this is basically a means of putting kind of like a controlling measure on magic use. We're starting to learn how to use magic, and it's, as you can see, this is like a new thing. So people that are learning to use magic, this is a strong force that people can wield. And so I guess they start to see examples of why people need to be more, regulated on how to use magic.
Yeah, well, it separates, it creates a very big distance between the common person and a person who can use magic. The person who can use magic can do a lot of things that the common person can't. And they're also more dangerous and more powerful just inherently because of that. So it would make sense, especially for the rulers, to try to put, get a handle on it.
This is put in kind of place with Desmond and Sambuc. They're the ones that kind of throw out this idea of like, hey, maybe we should, put some restrictions on stuff. And this is made with also the Jan Becker, like before, the first like magic wielder, and then other mages, Jeffrey Monk and GM Batista. That's a cool name.
Yeah.
So they make this pact of kind of, and it's a peaceful pact. So like they want to try and make this as like peaceful as possible, So we're starting to get more and more development of magic stuff. Jeffrey Monk takes a group of children to be trained by elves and to like wield magic as well. So I guess we're starting to see that elves are like learning how to do it as well.
Interesting. So, we know it started with humans, but it must have spread to the elves very quickly. And then I have to wonder if Jeffrey was doing this outside the rules, I guess, of these two leaders, like to take children out of the human realm, the human kingdoms, in order to get them trained by elves might mean that he was going against some of the rules potentially.
Oh gosh, I remember saying something about this, and it's like throwing me out. I think he was given permission from. This is probably some sort of like kind of conscription kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So these children were being chosen in order to be trained on purpose, and then were for some reason going to the. I'm just not sure how the elves fit in here, because if the elves were, maybe they took to magic even faster than the humans did once they were introduced to it, and so they became able to teach it to the children.
I think this might have, and like I said, the Novigradian Union was a peaceful treaty between the kingdoms. Maybe he was trying to like loop in the elves to have like an overall kind of peaceful thing, because obviously Desmond probably has a good relationship with the dwarves, seeing as how the dwarves revere him even to this, the time period we're in now. So maybe they were trying this whole, peaceful of all the races, trying to establish
bring this together. If we're gonna wield magic, then you're gonna wield magic. We can train together, that sort of thing potentially.
Yeah,
that could make sense. Yeah,
it doesn't last, unfortunately. So during this 70-year gap period, we're also going to see the massacre at Lochmuin and Est Hamlet geez, these names are brutal.
Yeah.
Carried out by Rapanek of Tradegor's army. And this Rapanek, literally, some of the only things people know, this dude was just notorious racist.
Well, there you go.
That's part of what he's known by.
Okay,
and
so he's creating problem. He's creating strife, and that's kind of his one goal, it seems.
Yeah,
because that's what he's known for.
He's part of the Redanian military, but he's just a terrible racist. Even quoting a famous quote of "a good elf is a dead elf."
Right,
and that's oof. He's starting to him massacre elves.
Right, creating friction between the groups.
Yeah, we're also going to see another location, Sherrowed.
And that sounds elvish. That sounds like an elvish location.
So Jeffrey Monk took these kids to Loch Muin to train. So these are all elvish locations. And so like we're just getting elven like massacres and everything right now. We're starting to see the beginning of this like terrible, I guess, the racism we see in the Witcher universe.
Right. This is the seed that grows into the very difficult time that we're seeing in the modern age of the Witcher.
So those are some of the important events that happen. We'll get into the 830s, and we're going to see the 6 Years' War between Temeria and Sintra. So we're at this point, I guess Sintra has become a development. They're kind of battling it out over land. Typical human thing to do. This idea of, that's mine, but someone else being like, no, that's mine.
Right.
So Sintra and Temeria go to war, and it's kind of an interesting aspect of things because the king of Temeria at this time is incredibly mentally disabled, I think. They use some words that I think are a bit less nice, so I don't want to say those words.
But that's what they mean. And any of these old histories, and I get the sense that this is written kind of in a similar way. You have these very blunt and simple descriptions of people that weren't necessarily written in the same way that we would write about somebody today. So like, like the words for like today we might say they were mentally disabled. They had PTSD. They had, it was like very specific diagnoses of like personality. But when you get to this old stuff, you just know that like, well, people called him this because they thought of this about him, and it probably wasn't very flattering. And so you have to kind of figure that out. And that seems to be the sense that I'm getting here in the way that you're describing a lot of the events and the people of this time, is that it's very simplified and potentially not even super objective. It's just all the information's coming from like a specific source, and it's not even, doesn't even go over all the details. It's just like, this is what we can put together about this time period because we don't know a ton about it. We're not the author. We only have the little hints and things that we get from the stories.
Which makes sense for like, we're still at the point of, older history where we don't have all the answers here. Essentially, the idea I got from this guy is it kind of reminded me of like in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, the King of Rohan, when he's been poisoned by Saruman.
Right. Yeah.
And he literally like is so gone that he can't even make decisions.
Right. Right. At that point, he's just kind of a puppet, and he's barely alive. Even. Yeah.
So this is kind of the state that we're seeing from this particular king. So I have to wonder if, we have some behind the scenes people that are just manipulating him into going to war. Because he can't make that decision himself. That's not a decision he can make. So we're going to see the 6 Years' War, and they're going to battle out, but it's going to come to an end, a peaceful end. Thanks to Rafford the White. He was the advisor to this king, and he kind of decides to take things into his own hands of like, I'm tired of this fighting. It's going nowhere. And my king cannot come to the decision to stop the war, and other parties involved don't seem to want to. So I'm going to stop this war myself. And he executes like peaceful negotiations between Temeri and Sintra, brings it into the war. He's also an incredibly gifted mage as well.
I wonder if that was part of it, like being able to use that to his benefit to convince people to stop fighting.
These are some of the key events that we're going to see that take place in the limited amount of information we have, at least from this time period. Right. But this isn't it for the 830s. There's some other pretty significant things that happen a little bit after this that I think are really important. Also, fun fact, we're going to have the birth of Emil Regis Rolahek Terziev Godefroy. It's a fun name. I've heard it a lot of times, so I actually know how to say it in the books. So this is, or better known as Regis, if you played the Witcher 3 DLC.
Blood and Wine?
Blood and Wine.
Yeah.
The vampire.
Yep.
So he's born all the way back here.
And how many years is that before like the modern age? Just for context. Like this is
if we're talking Witcher 3,
right? So The Witcher 3 happens.
Looking
things up. Well, this is interesting because we only have about
1272 is when Witcher 3 starts.
1272. Okay, so this is 200 plus years, or I'm sorry, 400 plus years before
400 years
before the events of The Witcher. And that's interesting is that like you go back 400 years and information gets really foggy. So it's only been it's not really that long of a period of time when you think about it.
And I think that's something we see maybe just due to like technology at this point.
Oh yeah.
And this is another important aspect that like let's keep in mind, because we haven't seen a solution to monsters yet.
Right. There's less of them. That's one of the things that the Witcher games make very clear is that Witchers are less common, monsters are less common. Like humankind is now spreading across the continent and settling the wilds and that kind of thing. But you're right. But these things are not gone. Every town has a monster problem.
Yeah. So during this time frame that we're learning about, there's a lot of things going on, and they just don't exactly I'm sure they're not as focused on recording the history of what's going on. That's probably not their top priority. So I can see why we're not exactly getting a whole lot of, information here.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. It'd be great to know some of what's going on here, but
yeah, it makes sense.
Oh well.
Well, we have a mid-break coming up, and then we've got some more talk about the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, right? That's what's coming up next?
Yeah.
And during the mid-break, we're going to play the new Geralt trailer, so you will be able to hear the audio for it. Toasty won't be able to hear it because he can only hear my microphone, but you, the listener, will be able to hear the audio or actually watch it as we go through it. And then Toasty's been working on his string board.
Ciphering?
Deciphering.
I feel like that's what I'm doing at this point is decoding a cipher.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on to that.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right,
those sound bites. I'm gonna have to get used to those.
They're so good. Well, welcome to the middle of the show. We're very glad that you guys are here with us. Thank you for listening. And if you would like to help out the show, we would love your help with adding reviews to Apple Podcasts whenever that is actually live and published, and telling your friends, if you're into The Witcher, if you're getting back into season 2, if you're jumping back into one of the games, and I know we're going to get a new Witcher game at some point, because CD Projekt Red has said that they are working on both Witcher and cyberpunk properties. So if you're just jumping back into this, we would love for you to share this with your friends and let people know, because our success on this podcast will only be as good as your response to the podcast. So thank you very, very much for any support you can give us. Let's take a look at The Witcher Season 2, trailer number 2. This one focuses primarily on Geralt. And let me make sure that this is sized correctly for the video. Here we go. All right. And you can listen along if you are a audio listener to what's going on here. Here we go.
Are you ready? Salvation. Run!
I need to understand.
Danger.
It's doubled up. It's like showing both trailers at this point on this video. Yeah, it went right from Geralt into Ciri. So it's quick. Like clearly
it's really short.
It's really short. There's not a whole lot of talking. It's very much a teaser. There are very quick cuts, and it's like Geralt here, Geralt there, standing in front of this thing out in the snow. You know, like boom, 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 and then it's basically done. So I know you, Toasty. I know that you've put this down to like 1/4 speed, and you've frozen every frame, and you've been looking at this. What kind of information do we have? What have you put together?
So, oh man, this is crazy. Obviously, I mean, my main focus is those runes, right? Like that's what they flash those little runes for like a nanosecond on screen. And
are they different than the last one?
They're different. These are different runes.
Okay. What do we have? What did they say this time? What have you, like, we know you've gone through the process of like finding the runes that we have access to, that we know what the words are, what the letters are, whatever. So I'm guessing you went through a very similar process. You kind of pulled that stuff up. You've taken a look at it. You're nodding your head. I think maybe that you actually have more words this time. Is that what you have?
No.
No. Oh no. Okay. What do you have?
They're really messing with us on this one. They're starting to get. I mean, okay, maybe. So I decided to go a little bit deeper this time because I'm not like. It's turning me into one for sure, but I'm not one of those like super crazy deep divers that like is like, you know, delving onto like the pages of the dark web to find out. But I know that there's people that are. And if they are, they're definitely going to respond with the stuff that they know to this stuff. So
no, don't go on the dark web.
No, don't go on the dark web. It's bad. But so I decoded this stuff for myself. I using because we have the pictures released with like the, I guess, translation of the runes. So I did it myself, and then I decided to go, because I talked last time about the Redanian intelligence website. Well, they have a Twitter account. I made sure to follow them, and I went and kind of delved onto the comments where people are talking, or tweets that they did at the Redanian intelligence, talking about what they found, or, you know, on the comments of these things. So what we got out of it was, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation as well. This is Elvish or Elder speech, so I'm not fluent. A iri inverne inilishine.
Okay. What does that mean?
So the only concrete word we have, unfortunately, is inverni, which means winter. So we have ice in the first one and winter in the second one. Yep. So confirmed, winter is coming. This is Game of Thrones. This is now Game of Thrones. Season 9. No, season 10 or whatever. No. But like I said, I went a bit deeper this time, and I looked at like all of the comments that I was seeing, the tweets and whatnot. So I think I went on there and I couldn't find specifically just A, because it's spaced. It's A iri, which was the first set of runes, but there's a space. So A seems to translate to 2, like TO.
Right. Okay.
Which I know isn't a lot, but it's a thing.
To something.
Yeah. And Iri might possibly translate to here. I have a question mark on that because I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But like HERE, like here and now. And so I was seeing some things, and it looked like there was kind of like different like phrasings of these things, but essentially it may possibly say another winter to pass.
Or another winter has passed?
Something like that. It's not a definite translation. But I mean, I think at this point they're just teasing us. I think this is still more of Ithleen's prophecy, if I had to guess. We have ice, we have winter. You know,
yeah, they're
the white thematically kind of thing,
similar, right?
So I think this is just more of that. They're giving us a little bit of the prophecy at a time.
That makes sense. And it'd be really interesting is if by the time we get the actual full trailer, like we get all these teasers and then we get the prophecy like spelled out, translated for us.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get more information specifically on how we may not get it until the actual season comes out, but I'm hoping that we get like an actual like definite translation for these. This David Peterson guy is really being real secure about what he shares as when it comes to this stuff. Yeah. Like he's holding it close to chest, so I'm sure he understands exactly everything because he's the one that came up with the language.
Right. No, it sounds very intentional for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure he's not going to spoil it for everybody, but I think you're right. Being that it is translatable, it's not just gibberish, that we're going to get something. And if not by the end of the trailers, but at some point in the show, we'll be able to look back and even if it's not spelled out for us, I'm sure you'll be able to go, okay, yeah, this is what this means. This word showed up here. This word showed up here. That kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, it seems pretty. I mean, they haven't given us any concrete words except for ice and winter. So there seems to be a theme going on here of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So it just seems that's where we're heading. Ithleen's prophecy, the white frost, you know, great cold thing. It just seems like that's where we're going.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. If we get another teaser before next episode, I'm sure Toasty will be on it, and we'll see if we find any other snowy winter kind of language, or maybe we'll get something else. We'll just have to wait and see.
I'm curious about this now. We're starting to get like, it seems like they're releasing this stuff, and it's actually, I have to like say I'm super appreciative of them doing this because they're like giving me like free stuff to talk about because they're like throwing one out every week, and I'm like, okay, we can talk about this. So I'm wondering how many we're gonna get. Obviously, so my thoughts on this, because in the first season we had the story of Ciri, the story of Geralt, and the story of Yennefer.
Right.
That's kind of the three that we got.
Right.
So we've gotten the teaser trailer of Ciri, the teaser trailer of Geralt. Are we getting the Yennefer one next?
Yeah, definitely. Because people are going to be wondering what happens to her. And she's
for sure
she was, and the actress who played her was so good in the first season. And I think my wife hasn't played through the Witcher games, but we watched the first season together, and I like getting people's perspectives on things who don't have the same background I have. So I was like, I'm watching and I'm going, oh yeah, this is that scene from the book. And there was a, call back to it in, the Witcher game or one of the games. But she doesn't have that reference. So at one point I was just like, what is your impression of Yennefer? Like, what do you think about her? Because she is she always teeters on the edge of like dark, right? Like she's very headstrong. She does what she wants. She's kind of domineering towards everybody around her. She's got such a rough background. She's very powerful. And ultimately, she ends up on the side of good, but she always teeters on that side of like doing something for herself versus doing the right thing that needs to happen. You know, like there's that edge there with her. And she thought she was an incredible character. She really wanted to see where that was going, and had some thoughts about maybe where that was going to go in the future. But yeah, I think that they're definitely going to have to include her.
Yeah, she does play. I mean, this is following the storyline of the Blood of Elves, and she's a very significant part in the Blood of Elves. So we're going to start seeing Yennefer train Ciri for how to use magic.
Yeah,
that's big.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, I don't remember exactly what days they're dropping these at. It seems like it was like Tuesday or Wednesday, I think I remember. So we're going to see probably the Yennefer thing, and we're going to see more runes. And you know what? I bet I'm going to be able to translate only one of them.
Probably
and
so.
It's going to say like Frost or something.
Right. Yeah. This one went up. This video went up, and it's not the original people who did it. It was reposted, and it says the 18th. So it was 3 days before now. Well, that would have been Friday. So maybe towards the end of the week, maybe we get them Thursday or Friday. Seems to be it, but we'll have it most likely before the next episode. So we'll tell you what, let's move on with the rest of the show, because we got to talk about the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, and then a little bit about the creation of the Witchers. And we got to do it before we run out of time, because the Xbox Game Pass show is coming up after this. So let's get to it.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
It's onion.
Oh, this gives me every time. All right, so we're talking about the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, a very big organization in the storyline of the books. This is the same 830s time period that we're talking about. So we're going to see the creation of, and they use a lot of names. I'm assuming these are names that they were trying to work on cycling through. So we get the creation of the Conclave of Mages, name number 1.
Okay.
And all of these names that I'm going to say, these are all mages that are part of this. They're going to draw up laws on magic. So we got Herbert Stammelford, Aurora Henson, Ivo Richer, I'm going to say Richer, Agnes of Glanville, Jeffrey Monk, heard that name before. That's so he's still around, and then Radmir of Tor Carnet. So these are kind of like the founding members.
Okay. So the Conclave of Mages is these people. They draw up some laws about magic, right? All right. And then where do things go?
Rafford the White, the guy who stopped the war, he was very much against the beginning of this group. There's a bit of conflict between some mages that don't agree that they should be, I guess, as run like this, and the ones that are making this.
What? Mages arguing with each other? That never happens.
Yeah. And Rafford's not going to make it. He's not the winner in this argument. So he donezo. He gets killed in the conflict. We're going to see that these guys, they're going to start running things. So they're going to take control of pretty much most of the magic users. Magic academies like Aretuza and Banard, they're gonna take control of those as well. And then Risberg, which is a kind of experiment place. They just do a whole lot of experiments with magic and mutations and things. That's an important location we're going to get to in a little bit. So they're going to take control of all of this stuff and start running it and declaring everything and how it works. And then they're going to split into 2 different, I put bipartisan system because it kind of what it reminds me of. 2 different like councils, 5 mages each, and they're going to run things. They're like the top. So they're running things. They're like the government of the Brotherhood of Sorcerers.
And they're like cooperative. So, they're like there's like 2 different groups, and then they make they decide what each of them think, and then they come together, work together in order to create the laws and the things that everyone else is going to have to follow. They
cooperate in somewhat, but they kind of have their own different
agendas.
like, yeah. So so we get the chapter of the gift and the art, and then the Council of Wizards, and the chapter has higher authority to the Council of Wizards. So for the chapter, they were kind of the law. They decided all the big decisions, things. And then the council, we're going to see, they were given the run of like the smaller things. So like the organizations.
Okay. Okay. So the chapter is kind of like the federal government, and the council is kind of like the local government or something like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like it says the chapter has higher authority, but it seems like it's a pretty ridiculous like sway of authority. So because the Council of Wizards focuses on magical experiments, research, and expanding magical knowledge, which is also kind of the point of Rissberg as well. It seems more of like a scientific division.
Okay.
So like you're here and so you're going to create the things.
Right. Okay. So the chapter is more like the governmental body, and the council is more like the research and discovery, the R&D arm.
Yeah. So like it's kind of a weird skew, and I don't know. They regulate and oversee the uses of magic and limit the practices of demonology, necromancy, and artifact compression, which are black magic to them. They consider that black magic. Right. So they don't stop it completely, but it's very limited, controlled environments. They don't like messing around with these things. These are pretty bad things. Right. And I think we get a good example of that probably in like The Witcher 3, when Yennefer uses necromancy. We can see the catastrophic effects that it has, and
the strain it puts on her. She doesn't like it. She's like, I can do this, but I don't want to. She was like, yeah, I remember that moment. Yeah, absolutely.
It was.
What is artifact compression?
We actually get an example of artifact compression in the books. Yennefer is the victim of artifact compression. Basically, it's shrinking down and turning a person into like a tiny miniature statue.
So it's like freezes them in it converts them into another object and kind of freezes them in time in a way.
Yeah. So time still goes. Yeah. They're essentially, I guess, just like incapacitated for it. Like they're not.
Okay.
They can't do anything or anything. They're just a statue, like a little tiny like chess piece, pretty much.
Yeah.
So this happens to Yennefer when she gets kidnapped and forced into the Lodge of Sorceresses, and they turn her as a statue, and it's not good because it can cause organ damage and like. That's if you bring them back. Like if you just leave them there, like you're effectively dead, I would think.
Right.
Like I don't know at what point you die.
Right.
But you're a statue and if they choose to leave you as a statue for all time, I'm like,
you're gone. You're no longer a thinking, doing person. You're just a statue. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I gotcha. Okay. I just had a question about that because I wanted to clarify that up because the demonology and necromancy are pretty clear.
Yeah, those. We know self-explanatory.
Right. Demons and dead things.
So they're regulating and they're giving people who like use that magic what they refer to as fair and just sentences. And you want to know what is a fair and just sentence? Sentences?
What is this?
Talk.
What is this? What does it mean?
So they shackle them in Dimeridium or Demetrium, however you want to pronounce it, for several centuries.
What?
Like, we know that like sorcerers and mages and things can live a really long time. But like several centuries? What are we talking? Like if you take it almost to the most literal, what are we talking, like 700 years?
Yeah. This is basically a life sentence.
Yeah, and we haven't even passed 700 years at this point anyways. So
right.
So do they just have people like chained up in the basement like
for generations? Like Yeah. Who has been chained up in the past and we don't know about. Yeah, totally.
So basically, if you violate their rules on those things, you get locked up. Or if you don't get locked up, they like label you a renegade and they basically hunt you down and kill you.
Yeah, you're outside the bounds of their law, so therefore you are an outlaw and able to be hunted down. That makes sense.
It's kind of crazy, to be honest. And they specifically mention Alzor and Idaron of Ulivo. Those two were marked renegades. Alzor is actually a very significant figure. I talked about Risberg, just a place where you experiment and mutate things and whatnot. So you're pretty much playing around in like a laboratory and just making whatever you want. And we're starting to see at this point, people are like, these monsters, dude, like these monsters are no joke. We need to figure out a way to get rid of the monsters. So the Northern rulers tasked the mages from the Brotherhood to create magic wielding warriors to deal with the monsters and get rid of them. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be done by Cosimo Malaspina and Alzor.
So they brought in somebody who was willing to break the rules in order to accomplish this, is basically what's happening, right?
So at this point, I'm not entirely sure. Like this, of course, this is labeled in more of a general term of time. So Alzor was trained by Cosimo. So Cosimo took his like apprentice and he was like, all right, we're going to do this thing for him. And so they make the Witchers, like the first Witchers. The Witchers didn't work according to what they were asked to do, because they wanted magic wielding warriors, and Witchers aren't exactly that talented at wielding magic.
Right, they're mages.
They're very limited in what they can do, as we see with the signs. They have to use the signs in order to manipulate magic, and it's a very like inferior version of the magic that they're doing.
Right. They're by no means mages. They are minor practitioners of signs. That's basically when we see that with Geralt, right? He can make some sparks happen. He can slow down, enemies within a certain zone. He can give himself like a little shield. And these are the effects that he has in the games. But it's still very minimal. I mean, it's more magic than the common person has, but I can imagine that leaders of nations who are looking to fight off the monsters were looking for more than just somebody who can cast, sparks at the monsters. Like he was, like, well, where is the fireball? Right.
So they're deemed failures. They're like, okay, we told you to do this. They can't do this. Just get rid of them. We don't want them. Like, so they get banished, which I guess is nice. They banish them as opposed to just killing them. Because I'm sure that was probably on someone's mind. And so because of the time frame of things, I'm not entirely sure if Cosimo and Alzor are part of these like renegades they brought in to do these experiments for them, or if maybe them being renegades are a result of this, because
they were labeled.
We don't hear about Cosimo after this at any point. And I'm wondering if maybe as the elder mage on the experiment, if like they were like, you failed us and, killed him, or maybe he was just, old or something happened during the experiments that resulted in his death. Because we know that these Witcher, we'll get into that.
Witchers are dangerous.
Witcher stuff is not exactly safe. So, and Alzor, so maybe Alzor has to, gets, sent out. And he's like, we don't like you anymore. You suck. Get out.
Right.
Because Idaron is also Alzor's apprentice. So we're seeing, this line of people that just get sent out because they failed.
Right. And maybe that they came to odds with the leadership of the mages too. Maybe they felt like they were abandoned. Maybe they felt like they were set up for an impossible task, and now they've got a chip on their shoulders. Like
I believe it. I mean, like we see this. We see this a lot in the books. These mages aren't like by any means like like their egos aren't normal egos. Like the power seems like it very much goes to them because a lot of these mages seem full of themselves.
Oh yeah.
Of like, I'm the greatest. I can do the greatest things. And like, Cosimo was no like tiny mage. He was considered really powerful for the limited knowledge we have about him. And Alzor is like like ascendant. He's like super strong. He has like spells that actually like get made. He makes and they get handed down. Like he's incredibly talented, and it's believed that he's actually did most of the work on the Witcher project.
Yeah.
So,
and maybe the organization fears them. Maybe they are so powerful and so ahead of the curve that they're trying to be reined in, and they don't appreciate that. That could be it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the coming together of these renegade mages with a plan to create warrior mages that doesn't work. And so we get witchers instead, and the witchers get banished from the castle. And of course they don't go quietly and just disappear, because otherwise we wouldn't have the Witcher stories, right? So they continue their line, and we're going to get into more of that in the next episode, where we can talk about the beginning of the Witchers.
I kind of just want to talk about Witchers.
Just Witchers in general?
I think this is I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, this is the Witcher lorecast. I think people want to know about the Witchers.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dig into the Witchers next time. That sounds good. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And there's a lot of information here, but then there's also a lot of holes in it. So it looks like Toasty's had to kind of stitch some stuff together in order to get us a vague representation of the past, but this is what we know, and this is what leads up to the Witchers. So pretty cool info. Toasty, do you have anything else going on? Anything you want to share before we head out?
I feel like I'm going to be like sort of the second Captain Logan on this, because I'm so excited about the Sea of Thieves happening tomorrow.
Yeah, so if anyone doesn't play Sea of Thieves, there's the big update coming tomorrow with the Pirate's Life. So they've combined Sea of Thieves with Pirates of the Caribbean, and Jack Sparrow and a bunch of quest lines, including characters that from the movies, are going to show up. And I'll probably be streaming that with Kirby Chew tomorrow. So maybe we can set up a time to play some games. Check out the new content.
Totally be down. I'm about to. I may accidentally disappear off the grid for the next few days while I grind and no life it. But
nice.
Yeah, not really anything else, too crazy going on. Follow us, the Witcher Lorecast on Twitter.
Yeah,
Witcher
go check
Lorecast,
out.
Sorry.
Yeah, check out Witcher Lorecast on Twitter. And if you have any, we'd love to hear some of your thoughts and opinions about the Witcher books and the games and the content that we've talked about already. And if you have any other insight into any of the things that we've talked about, also, please feel free to chime in, and you can post on the Robots Radio Discord. That's another place that you can get together with us and talk. It's a very popular Discord. We have lots of different channels for all the different podcasts on the Robots Radio Network, and a lot of the games and things that we all play together on there. So go check that out. And let's see, I've got the Xbox Game Pass show coming up next with Sam, so N7 Legend from the Mass Effect Lorecast, and I do that show, and we'll be talking about some of the new games coming to Game Pass and some of the ones that we've tried out recently that are currently available. So stay tuned for that. Even if you aren't a Game Pass member, you can, or owner, I don't know how that works. I don't know what word best fits that, but even if you don't have the Xbox Game Pass, you can still listen to the show and hear about some of the games that you may or may not want to pick up. But if you aren't a Game Pass owner, then you can use our link. And we have a link. So bit.ly/XBG Pass. And it will get you to a page where you can get the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for $1 for the next 3 months, which is ridiculous because you get access to all these crazy games. You can play them on Xbox, on PC, and even on your phone. There's an app on your phone that'll let you just play these games on your phone, which is amazing. So they stream from the cloud. They work great. I've tried Sea of Thieves on there. It works. It's nuts. It even has touch controls. It's crazy, dude.
I can't imagine playing Sea of Thieves on touch controls. Crazy.
But you can also connect your Bluetooth like controller, like your Xbox controller or whatever. You can connect to your phone, Bluetooth. So you could just use your phone as a screen in order to just play the game wherever you are. As long as you've got like a good Wi-Fi connection to the internet, you're good. Yeah, it's kind of phenomenal. So like you can hang out with your wife while she watches something and still play Sea of Thieves on your phone, which would be super cool, right?
Yeah.
Spend some time with the lady, you know. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll be back next week to talk about Witchers. We'll see you later. See you guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.